Good afternoon. Welcome back to Passionate World Talk Radio, a subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Our motto is educate, enlighten, entertain. And today on Lest We Forget, our special guest is Dr. Tracy Kemble, who wrote the book Narcissistic, a dictionary. So I'm going to welcome Dr. Kemble into the group and ask her to give you an idea of who she really is. So how are you today, Dr. Kemble?
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm excited to talk about this subject and my new book, Narcdictionary.
I knew I was pronouncing it wrong. See, people, you always need to practice the names of books because you can get them wrong if you're not careful. So Unless We Forget, it's also a program for this month's topic called human trafficking. But the type of book that Tracy wrote describes what happens to you when you marry or have an affair or date that kind of person, and how it can break you down. So please explain how you wrote the book in the first place so the audience understands.
So I have been in the world of recovery or empowerment, whichever word best works for you, for over 30 years. And I began really as a journey to reclaim my own life that had become destroyed, both emotionally, financially, psychologically, because of what now has a name. It didn't have a name back then, as being exposed to somebody who has narcissism. And I know that that word is so thrown around a bit recklessly in the industry and on social media, but there is a condition out there. There is somebody who is known as a narcissist, or somebody with NPDs, antisocial personality disorder. And when you encounter this type of a personality without the tools to understand what you're dealing with, that their shenanigans and manipulations and abusives can actually destroy another person's life.
So when you destroy that person's life, how do you break them down?
So if I am a narcissist, first off, a narcissist is somebody who would be described as a very selfish, manipulative person who, again, manipulates another person to extract fuel or attention or money, or with the goal of overpowering that person and controlling their life. So many times, when I work with my clients and they look at their life and they say, my God, what happened to me? How did this happen? I always take them back to the initial encounters of their relationship with a narcissist, which it was probably charming and wonderful and filled with a future faking of what they are going to bring to the table, what they're going to do to you, how they're going to rescue you from certain environments, protect you from any type of harm. And it's all a song and a dance to get you onboarded, just like a cult onboards its victims, onboarded, and then broken down so that you become dependent on this person and therefore almost like a prisoner to their manipulations.
So would you consider that like when people, like a woman or a child, is picked up and they're put into the slave trade, they do the same things?
Absolutely. Anybody who is an abusive personality, and let me just explain the thing about narcissism. Narcissism is not like pregnancy. It's not you either are pregnant or you're not. You either are a narcissist or you're not. You're talking about something that is a spectrum disorder. Each and every one of us has elements of narcissism in them, and we need to have something within us that's called healthy narcissism And that healthy narcissism allows us to keep the good in and the bad out. No, I'm not going to allow this for my life. This healthy narcissism. As narcissism goes on up the scale, it then merges into something that's called high narcissistic characteristics. And people with high narcissistic characteristics, and it can be both a male and a female, are very difficult, complicated people as it are difficult people. As it continues to go on up the scale, it then merges into narcissistic personality disorder. And this is a very complicated person that that is a very dangerous person, because they will begin to destroy your life and your self-esteem and your emotional visibility. And as it continues to go on up the scale, it then merges into antisocial personality disorder, sociopath, psychopath. And these are just the type of people that we want to stay away from. So when you meet a narcissist, you can meet somebody who comes across polished and put together. And so this manipulation is, like I said, it's a slow onboarding that through the various techniques that they will do, they'll draw you into their life dangerously.
All right. So what are some of the clues that a woman, even girls, you can do this in dating, ladies, when you start dating around 14 and 15, there's no age limit to this type of behavior. So what kind of clues, though, a woman or a young lady should be aware of?
Well, gosh, there are so many. There is a certain type of a person that the narcissist is attracted to. So that's one thing I can touch on. There are certain characteristics that the narcissist implements to get their target, is what it's known as, their victim or their target, onboarded. One of the things that you asked me earlier is, is this something that you see in trafficking or what have you? And the answer is absolutely. That every single person who engages in the abuses and the ongoing abuses of another person is narcissistic. Where it gets confusing is each of us can have that narcissism in us on a bad day, and we can behave and we have to say, oh gosh, you know what, not my most shining moment. But people who perpetually operate in this mindset, these are the people that we need to be careful and are very dangerous to the well-being of our life. So I can address the side of the personality that narcissists like to prey upon, or I can address some of the things that you need to have your eyes wide open with. Which would you like?
Tracy, let's use Ted Bundy maybe as an example, because he's one of the most famous narcissists that's ever walked the planet. Now, you were saying that it's a slow process, kind of like a cult process, brainwashing, but Ted Bundy was able to pull his victims into his web in a very short period of time. And I'm sure that you probably are very knowledgeable about his story. So maybe you can use some of the tactics that he used on his victims, so we can kind of relate that to knowing what to look out for.
Yeah, no, Ted Bundy, and again, I will say, having never met him and diagnosed him. Okay, so let me just put that preface up there, because many people, as I said, easily throw around, they're a narcissist, they're a sociopath, they're this. Ted Bundy was definitely a psychopath. And people want to say, what's the difference between a narcissist and a high narcissistic tendencies and a sociopath and a psychopath? And I'm going to put it in really general terms so that you understand the difference. We can all have a bad day and act like a little bit of a jerk and a narcissist. We have a check in us that says, ooh, not my shining moment. We're okay. Moving on up the scale gets a little bit worse. When you start dealing into people with high narcissistic tendencies all the way up to psychopath, you're dealing with a human being who lacks empathy, meaning they have no ability, they have no desire to step into the shoes of another person. Actually, what they do is they have something that is called fake empathy, and they will tell you stories to make you feel like, oh, this person gets me. wow, they really understand. I was an abandoned child. They were an abandoned child. Oh my gosh, my mother or father was an alcoholic. Their mother or father is an alcoholic. And they will make up any story that they can as they're reading their victims, because they literally read their victims to make that victim believe that they are safe with them. Now, here's the difference between somebody with narcissistic personality disorder, sociopath, and psychopath, like Ted Bundy. Narcissistic personality disorder, very destructive people in our life. We can remain married to them for years and just watch ourselves dissolve in front of them. Somebody who is sociopathic versus a psychopath, is the way that I describe it is that both of them have zero empathy for other people and how their actions affect other people, that they honestly believe that all people around them are pawns in their world to simply manipulate how they best need them to be manipulated. The difference between a sociopath and a psychopath is that a sociopath will think, I'm going to harm this person and destroy this person, but they will have a little bit of a check inside of them that says, but I don't look good in prison clothes, so I'm not going to do it. Where a psychopath doesn't care. They'll just say, like, I just need the thrill of this and the power of this, and so I'm going to do it. And they don't think about the consequences of their actions.
Can somebody be a combination of all three, or you're one or the other?
Well, I think that it's the degree. It's kind of like when you're baking a cake, you have the basic cake mix that's in there. And if you want to turn the cake into a strawberry cake, you put some strawberries in it, and you can't extract those strawberries, but all of a sudden you want it to be a strawberry vanilla cake. You can add more vanilla into it. And now you have both the strawberry and the vanilla. And then if you want to make it a swirl, you add some chocolate in there. So it's by the time that you're dealing with a psychopath has already been a sociopath, has already been a narcissist, has already been high narcissistic characteristics. And so, that's like the top of the line of a dangerous person.
Oh, well, that makes total sense. Thanks.
Are there more boys who are narcissists than there are women, or they pretty much evenly spread out?
Well, that's a difficult question. There's not strong research. I would say that my gut reaction is I think that yes, and I pause on that because it is a pandemic that's on the rise. The problem that we have with the cultures and the norm in our younger generation right now is just to exist in high narcissistic tendencies. That's like their baseline in many of them. And that's no insult to any of the younger generation that's listening to this, because all of our generations, have our own things that we have struggled with. And so I think that there's probably more men, because more men are taught to get what they want in life through power and manipulation, simply for being male and having opportunity into the workforce and being programmed since they're young that their job is to, provide, where we still have that programming to stay at home and be moms and things of that nature. But neither it doesn't matter that we are not born narcissists, that narcissism comes from our childhood environment, and any family environment can create a narcissist.
I have a question. Hi, Dr. Tracy.
Hello.
I have interviewed other authors about being a narcissist, and they talk about love bombing, where the person, as will love bomb, and they do read their targets, and they will use their weakness against them. How do we protect our daughters from men like this? What should we tell them, and how do we protect them from these type of individuals?
Well, I'll give you a really simple answer, but it's not as simple to implement as it is to talk about. One of the telltale signs of a narcissist is that they meet you and they're on the fast track. That when you're on even the first date, that the conversation isn't, oh, what do you enjoy doing? Who are you? In a natural progression of a fun evening and the exchange of ideas. And you're like, oh, we have a lot in common. This person I think I want to see again. You literally feel like you're being interviewed for marriage. Almost like when they're looking at a horse, they'll open the mouth and look at the teeth and see what type of a quality of a horse it is. That they're almost doing that to you as a partner of how much money do you make, what type of family do you come from, do you want kids, they go to these really over asked questions quickly, that they start future faking really fast. Like, wow, you are so beautiful. Any man that is with you would be lucky to have you be the mother of their children. Wow. And this is like on the first date. And if you're young and vulnerable and you haven't had certain skills within the family unit, or you have any type of an abandonment trauma, that's the type that the narcissist goes after. And that's where they seek and they watch. But I think the best way that we can teach our daughters to be careful is be okay with learning to say, like, if this person is asking you too personal questions right up front, test the system and say, oh God, I'm not really comfortable talking about that, and see that person's reaction. Because somebody who overstepped out of zealousness and curiosity would be like, oh God, sorry, sorry, that didn't mean to do that. Let's circle back around. Where the narcissist would be like, well, why not? Isn't that a normal and healthy question to ask a woman your age? Ding, 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 ding. You're getting old. Do you see the little manipulations that take place? So that's what I recommend is to instruct your daughters that that a narcissist will move way too fast. That if they're talking full-blown relationship within 90 days, moving in, future faking, tell them not to be afraid to put the brakes on it. Because somebody who really loves you will respond to those breaks and be like, yeah, you know what? I'm in it for the long haul. So you can test me all you want. I'm here. Where a narcissist will start to do a little bit of the manipulation, getting angry. You also, I don't believe in detectiving and finding out about a person's past, but we do have the right to vet the people that we go out with. See, what's this person's history. Take it slow. Don't always believe because somebody is so enamored with you. If they're enamored with you and you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed by their enamored, be careful. If they're enamored with you and you're flattered and you feel safe and you still feel like you have your space, then enjoy the journey of love.
It almost sounds like they're professional scammers, because that's what a scammer does when they come on after women and girls.
Absolutely.
That's exactly their MO.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a narcissist. And is every scammer a narcissist? I don't know. If it's somebody that's sitting in a phone bank somewhere and they're taught this is your script, it's a narcissistic script that they're implementing.
Yes. Yeah.
If it's somebody who is using those actions to get what they want and they're a scammer, that scammer would be a narcissist.
I have a question. I kind of accidentally stumbled on this question on the internet. The question is narcissism a choice? And you touched on the answer to this very briefly a few minutes ago, but I think it's interesting enough that I'd love to hear your response to the answer to the question. And it says narcissism is not at all a choice. Narcissism is developed in the first years of life. And you mentioned that yourself, that we're not born as a narcissist. When personality is formed, narcissistic personality disorder is created because of severe and long-term neglect and hurtful and abusing upbringing. The long-term neglect of the child is severe enough for the child to develop an alter ego I guess that would be also similar to people who develop that protective shield and develop multiple personality disorder. So maybe you can touch on the difference of that. With this alter ego, the damages from neglect, indoctrination, enforcements, and other forms of abuse is severely diminished, since the narcissistic personality disorder works well at self-protection. This new self is emotionally underdeveloped. What does that mean? And reading this kind of inspired me to think about Betsy's question, that maybe early on in a relationship, you can find out if the person that you have sitting in front of you maybe had what could be considered an abusive childhood. Would they be honest about it, or would they not be honest about it?
Depends on how far up the scale they are. They will either be honest about it to extract sympathy from their target. So the target will be like, oh, they had such a difficult life, and look, all they want in life is love, and I have so much love to give, you see. So will they use it, or they'll completely hide it, and the thing is that a narcissist, a true narcissist, is a very complicated person, and yet they're not, in that, as you were able to just give a description of a narcissist, that their moods and their responses are inconsistent. However, the type of moods and the type of responses they give are systematic through all of them. You can expect them to love bomb, and then to go into, it's called from adoration to aberration state, that one minute they love you and the next they hate you. And that's why people say, like, well, aren't narcissists bipolar? They may have a bipolar disorder, but there's also a personality or a character trait where they switch on a dime with their temperament. So, and that's the confusing thing about the narcissist. But going to your question, where is narcissism a choice? And I'm going to answer this in 3 different ways. Number one, it is not a choice to become a narcissist, because narcissist is developed out of childhood trauma. And the job of a child is to simply be a child. It is not to survive abuse. It is not to calm your parents down. It is not to figure out how you're going to eat or sleep or be safe. So when a child is exposed to these extreme limits, it creates internal emotional trauma. And that trauma left untreated, like anybody who goes into a survival mode, that is what they choose, that this is how they choose to survive. So the initial becoming a narcissist is not a choice. Now let's progress into life. So here this person is, and they are a narcissist. They have anywhere from high narcissistic characteristics all the way up to sociopath, psychopath. What you're dealing with here is what's called a personality disorder. And within a personality disorder, the way that I like to view it is, our personality disorders treatable? I believe that they are. Is it one of the most difficult things in life? I believe that it is, because it takes a lot of work from the person who wants to change, where they are able to say, my thought processes, the way that I process life is too painful. I need a way out of this. And they will jump into therapy, and they will do whatever it takes to try to get to a better mindset. The difficulty with narcissism is that, like alcoholism or any type of an addiction problem, in order for that person to get well, what do they have to do? They have to say, you know what? I have a problem. I have a problem, and this is bigger than me. Well, because of how narcissism thinks, let's say, it's nearly impossible for a narcissist to look in the mirror and say there's something wrong with me. And because they lack empathy, they don't care how their actions affect other people. The only time that they really care how their actions affect other people is if they really have something to lose from it. Then they'll say like, oh, I'm going to lose something, so I better stop behaving this way. They don't ever think like, oh my God, my actions just hurt this person that I claim that I love. What am I doing? I hurt another human being. They don't have that thought process. They think like, well, they might leave, and if they leave, my laundry's not going to get done, and my bills aren't going to get paid, or I'm not going to have anybody to rage at. You see? So then they'll change just enough to keep that person in the position. So is it a choice? There's always a choice to heal and get therapy. It's highly unlikely, especially the higher up the scale they are, that they even care or want to. And then the third choice that we have to look at is when you have a narcissism, the whole family gets affected. And so if you're a victim of narcissism, it is your choice to change. It is your choice to get healing and recovery.
Okay, so Lisa, Betsy, do you have any more questions before we round up the show?
Yes, I do. Dr. Tracy, I'm interested in your opinion. Do you find a common thread among women of having suffered emotional abuse, low self-esteem, that they are attracted to this type of person who will love bond them and they feel secure in that, and then that person then turns on them?
Yes. And I just, really quickly for our listeners, if you're not familiar with the term love bombing, what it is, it's when the narcissist either first meets you or does something to hurt you and wants to win you back into their circle, that they will bomb you with acts of love. It's false love. They will text you to death. They will send you flowers. They will show up at your work. They will cry. They will say, I'm going to commit suicide if you don't come back. They will put you up on a pedestal. They will do everything to make you feel that their life cannot go on without you. So that's what love bombing is. And the goal is to basically disarm you, so that you believe that you have this amazing person in your life, but what you actually have is a wolf in sheep's clothing, or to make you feel guilty, like, oh my God, this person, if you have a history, oh my gosh, if I leave, this person it can't live without me, and what that taps into is any part of the victim's or the target's personality that in their childhood or along any journey of life, there is an underlying message that says, I'm not lovable, I'm not enough. And they say, wow, this person, look how much they love me. I'm finally enough. And that's part of our co-addiction. Because one thing I want to point out is that we talked about the spectrum of narcissistic abuse. We talked about the healthy narcissism on up the scale to, sociopath, psychopath. We never talked about what's on the other end of the scale here. What's on the other end of the scale here is a condition called self-love deficiency disorder. And self-love deficiency disorder is the polar opposite of narcissism. And because of that, these two polars are drawn together. And there is only two environments that narcissistic relationships can survive. The first one is a narcissist with a narcissist, and they will continue just to feed off of each other's ego. They end up breaking up because they're fighting for the mirror. Or a narcissist and a self-deprecate. And this creates that perfect circle of chaos that can keep a person entrapped in a relationship year after year after year. And that's why in my program, I have a recovery program called Reclaiming Me. And it's the journey from narcissistic abuse to self-love. Because I really believe that if we teach people who come from a trauma background how to build a steely foundation of self-love under their emotional feet, just vibrationally, they will disconnect from the same energetic level as that narcissist, and you'll be able to start creating healing in your life because you will not have that polar opposite anymore.
So Tracy, do you have any advice to the people who are listening today, especially the women and girls, and what they need to do should they feel like they're in that type of relationship? What's the best way for them to do it? Just walk away and break off, or what?
Well, the first thing I want to let you know is that love doesn't hurt. Love doesn't bridle your freedom of speech. Love doesn't create fear. And I'm reminded of a story that it was a big eye opener for me, and it was a story, an analogy that really kind of woke me up to the situation. It's a story about a man, and his wife was terrified of clowns, and she would literally just crumble in fear whenever she saw a clown. So this gentleman, whenever he would go into a room, he would always walk into the room first, and he would look around the room, and people would say, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm looking for clowns." And why are you looking for clowns? Because my love is afraid of clowns, and if there's any clowns, I just want to make sure that they're removed, so that she's not unnecessarily put into a state of fear. And what I realized from that story, and where it really woke me up, is I realized that I was somebody who would go plant clowns in the room just to see me reach a state of fear and terror. And so love protects. And so if you're in a relationship where you don't feel that you have that freedom of voice, that you don't feel protected, that you have any ounce of fear, and I'm not talking about just physical fear, I'm talking about somebody who threatens to abandon you, I'm talking about somebody who is constantly putting you in the fear of saying the wrong thing and an argument coming. There is no fear in love. And so if you're in a relationship where you are living in fear, then there's a very good chance that you're with a problematic person, and that's not love. If you find yourself in the place that you realize, I'm in trouble here, I'm in a relationship that is very destructive, if you're in the position to go no contact, because any contact with the narcissist is fuel, and that's all they want from you is fuel. Narcissists have 3 levels of fuel sources, and those of us who stay in it for a long term, we're that primary fuel source, and they don't want to lose us. They want to torture us and get us to stage so that they can keep coming back and coming back and coming back for more fuel. But if you are in the position to leave, leave. If you're in the position where this is a parent or a sibling or somebody you work with, or the parent of your child, then what you need to do is you need to get help. Learn how a narcissist behaves so that you can learn to hold on to yourself when they begin to come fuel source off of you. I do have a program that's available for any of the listeners here, and where that's exactly what we teach is, what is this thing called narcissism? How do I hold on to myself? How do I heal? And how do I begin to launch my life after narcissistic abuse? It's called Reclaiming Me.
How do people find out about that?
Oh, goodness. Well, thank you for asking. Let's see. You can go to my website. It's drtracy.tv. And you can just click on the Reclaiming Me, and everybody who comes in is always our first time guest. And because I'm so passionate about helping people untangle from narcissistic abuse, because I know when I went through my recovery, it didn't even have a name. And now luckily it does, that the first time guests are our guests. It's completely free. And after that, our classes are only $10 each. And it's a wonderful online community. We have 2 live classes a week, East Coast and West Coast time. We've been doing this for over 20 years, and we have never missed a date, whether one person shows up or 50 people show up in a classroom. We are there and committed to helping women heal from narcissistic abuse trauma.
Wow, this has been just phenomenal. You did an exceptional job explaining what narcissism is really about, and I learned a lot from you, and some of it really resonates with some of my personal experiences.
It's so true. Well, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I would say maybe I just didn't recognize some of the things as being part of bucket. But yeah, it certainly has opened my eyes to a lot. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. It's very eye-opening. Yeah.
So, well, thank you for having me. And my latest book that I have out, it's called Narcdictionary, and it's the dictionary for narcissism, narcissistic abuse trauma, and narcissistic abuse recovery. And it has over 350 words and definitions and terms that give name to the many ghosts of narcissism. Because, we don't know what we're dealing with. Like you said, it's like, that has what, and when it has a name, as my mother always taught me, that when a ghost doesn't have a name, we can't grab a hold of it. But when a ghost has a name, we're able to bring it into our life, heal it, mend it, repair it, or if it doesn't best serve us, push it out of our life. And Narcdictionary is kind of giving name to all the ghosts of narcissistic abuse trauma. And the great thing about the book is I have a self-assessment test that you can just check that which applies to you. The more you check means the more you've been exposed to narcissism and narcissistic abuse, the more you hurt, and you check those boxes means your level of trauma, and the more boxes you check in the recovery means you're further along in the recovery. And there is life after narcissistic abuse trauma. We can heal. We do have the choice to heal if we're a victim of narcissistic abuse trauma, and there's lots of avenues out there to get there.
I have one last question, and I'm going to ask this because I wouldn't doubt that other people are wondering the same thing. Based on this conversation that we've had today, it sounds to me like several of these personality disorders. We talked about multiple personality disorder. We talked about narcissism. We talked about sociopathic disorder and psychopathic disorder. It sounds like a lot of the symptomology that occurs out of each one of these personality disorders, there's a lot of overlapping between them. My question to you for our audience is, do you have to fall into the narcissistic personality victim bucket in order to heal from your recovery program? What if you're a victim of one of the other personality disorders? Because it seems like they're interrelated in a lot of ways.
They are, every kind of what I'm getting kind of in my spirit to best describe it is whenever we get the flu, sometimes we can get a head cold, sometimes we can get a stomach flu, sometimes we can get an intestinal flu, and the treatment is in general the same treatment, but it's skewed to the individual breakdown that's happening in your body. It's kind of the same way with healing from anybody with a personality disorder, that there is very common trauma wounds that come in living with somebody whose moods and personality is inconsistent. So that's how I would kind of give a blanket of what's personality disorder. You're dealing with somebody whose moods and reactions are inconsistent. And whenever, especially as a child, one of the number one things we need is consistency, right? And so this lack of consistency causes very similar traumas. Now, be it a person is bipolar, be it a person is histrionic, those are the nuances that you go into different areas of healing. But is there a blanket healing that you can receive? I say jump into narcissistic abuse recovery, and you'll be tapping into a lot of the other personality disorder traumas that are in there.
So what I hear you saying is you can pretty much help everybody.
Yes, because when somebody, it's very rare that somebody only has narcissism. There's in the world of recovery, there's dual diagnosis, which means there's you have a head cold and the flu, and so they're in a category that's called cluster B, and within this cluster B personality, there's histrionic disorder, there's narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, et cetera, et cetera. So they rub up against each other, and sometimes in recovery, a trauma wound is a trauma wound is a trauma wound when it comes to abandonment. And if you just heal the abandonment, doesn't matter if it was caused by narcissism or by somebody who was drinking alcohol and abandoning you? Does it matter? Or is it the fact that you need to heal the hole in your soul? And so that's what we need to focus on is what matters in recovery is the symptoms that the victim of the trauma is suffering from. And that's a unique footprint. And when you begin to examine yourself and say, this hurts and this hurts and this hurts and this hurts, your job is to figure out what hurts. And a professional's job or a community's job is to help you navigate your way to healing.
That's what I was hoping you'd say. Terrific. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Did we lose?
Thank you.
Did we lose Lillian?
I think we did lose Lillian. And so I think we did. So hopefully that she'll be able to come back and join us. And if not, I guess we sign off with you two, Betsy and Lisa, to wrap up the show.
Well, thank you, Dr. Tracy. I enjoyed hearing you speak, and I find it so interesting. I had interviewed someone who wrote a book about the 27 subtypes of narcissistic behavior. And it's just fascinating, all the different types and how these people operate in different ways. It's really fascinating. And I'm looking forward to interviewing you on my show, I think in August.
I love it. I'm available anytime. I love talking about this subject. And most important, I love helping shine a flashlight to other women who are in the dark about what they're dealing with. I was in the dark way too long, and I'm passionate about making that journey back to life much quicker than what I had to walk. And because those of us who survive that, we deserve to be able to jump back into life and experience the beautiful side of life, because there is life after narcissistic abuse trauma.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for sharing everything you shared with us today. This has been very educational and insightful. Keep up all your good work. I mean, there's a lot of women out there that just, well, probably men too, that desperately need you.
Dr. Tracy, how can people get in touch with you?
Oh, thank you for asking. So the easiest way to get a hold of me is actually on Instagram, and it's Dr. Tracy Kemble, and it's Kemble. Our second account on Instagram is called Reclaiming Me with Dr. Tracy. And that's the program that we offer. It's Reclaiming Me, because, when I went into recovery, and this was before narcissistic abuse trauma had a name, I walked into the therapist, and the therapist said what all therapists say, why are you here? And I looked at them, and all I could tell the therapist was, my brain feels that it's like mush, and I feel invisible. And those two statements right there were the beginning of me understanding that I had a condition called narcissistic abuse trauma. And it didn't come right away, because like I said, at the time, it didn't have a name. But so the program is called Reclaim. That's the reason why the program is called Reclaiming Me, is we have to go in and reclaim our authentic self, our identity, because when you're in a narcissistic relationship, you suffer from narcissistic identity theft, where they go in and they just rob you of the essence of who you are. So it's a 1-year program, and like I said, it meets twice a week, and it works, it heals, it repairs the life. And my website is drtracy.tv, and I would love to welcome anybody who feels like you're in the deep waters, the deep murky waters of narcissistic abuse. We are a safe, loving, and actually enjoyable place to come seek healing.
Thank you. I think it's wonderful when we see people who have been through the trauma that you have been through. You came out on the other side, you're victorious, and you are helping other people. I thank you for that. I thank you for sharing your story to help other people. Because as you know, Dr. Tracy, people think, oh, I can't talk about it. People are going to judge me. I'm the only one who feels that way. And you're not. And I'm here to say, you know what? We're here to help you. Dr. Tracy Kemble's here to help you. Lisa Skinner's here to help you. I'm here to help you. Lillian Cauldwell's here to help you. This is why we had the show. And I'm grateful for you coming on. Thank you so much for.
I second everything she just said. This is-
Oh, I
Thank
love
you.
this. Thank you for having me. It's been
Thanks
such
for
a
being
pleasure.
here. We really appreciate you.
I
Thank
appreciate
you. Lisa, how can people reach you?
If you'd like to send me an email with your thoughts, your comments, your questions, my email address is dementiawhisperer1@gmail.com. And please don't be shy. I'd love to hear from you.
And my email is Sloan, SLOAN, Betsy, BETSY 31@gmail.com. Send us a comment. How did you like this show? Did it help you? What would you like us to talk about unless we forget? We'd like to hear from you.
I'll give you my comment. I loved this show. Thank you so much again, Dr. Tracy.
What a fun way to spend a Friday.
Yes, thank you so much. And thanks for listening, everybody. You've been listening to Lest We Forget on Passionate World Talk Radio. You can find us on YouTube. There'll be a repeat. We're on iHeart, Spreaker, Spotify, to name just a few. And thank you to Lillian Cauldwell, CEO, Passionate World Talk Radio, that makes it all possible. Please read the blog that Jeannie White, who's station manager at Passionate World Talk Radio, writes. All the information about Dr. Tracy Kemble will be in the blog. Where can they purchase the book, Dr. Tracy Kemble?
Oh, thank you for asking that. Amazon.com, and the name of the book is Narcdictionary. It's just like dictionary, only it's for narcissism. So it's Narcdictionary, and it's available on Amazon.com.
That's
Thank you.
brilliant. Brilliant title. I love it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Folks, I would run to the computer and order this book. Start protecting yourself. You're never too old. And let's start protecting our children. How's that? Get this book for your
Absolutely.
daughter, even for your son. And I have a personal comment to make. My personal experience. We have to stop shaming our children, especially our girls. Stop shaming your daughter if you think she's overweight, too skinny, too this, too that, because you know what you're going to do? You're going to make your daughter very easy target for a narcissistic person. You don't want that. Let's give our children the tools they need and to have them have good self-esteem. That's what I think really helps, because when you have been abused emotionally and mentally, you will fall victim to someone who love bombs you because you think, oh, they're paying attention to me. I'm finally worth it. I'm finally good enough for someone. That's how I firmly believe, very passionate about it, because I was a victim of emotional and mental abuse. I could have been a victim to someone who was narcissistic if I didn't recognize it. It wasn't talked about in the 60s and 70s. So we need to help our children feel good about themselves. And
I'm
that's
going to add one thing to what
Sure.
Betsy just said, because it's so true. I firmly believe, and I've had 2 children of my own, I always believed, and I believe it's the number one responsibility of every single parent, is that we are here to prepare our children for their adult life.
Mhm.
And that's something they're going to carry with them throughout time. We have them for less time than they're going to have an adult life. So think about what you are setting your kids up for when they turn 18 years old, because that's our number one job. So you're setting them up for success, or you're setting them up for, unfortunately, for failure and a lot of the problems that Dr. Tracy has brought to our attention today.
Thank you. Very truly, so I agree. Well, that's it for today, folks. Thank you so much for joining us on Lest We Forget on Passionate World Talk Radio. Have a good week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.